Well, you consider this. To be known locally is one thing, but his influence is now syndicated. We're here with the sexy boomer. Need I say more? He's from small-town central Illinois, and that may have propelled him to make his mark on the world. It hasn't been a cakewalk, though, especially health-wise. Please help me welcome this face. Now, this familiar with his voice, it's Scott Robbins.
Hello, and thank you for having me. I appreciate that very much. By the way, sexy boomer, now that you've seen me, you know that's fake news. So, anyway,
No.
we move on.
No, we are both boomers. And so,
Yes.
you know, we're very fortunate that we grew up at the time we did.
Yeah, I feel fortunate about that too, and the place I did. So, I mean, it instills all sorts of values you carry with you for the rest of your life.
And that's Low Point, Washburn.
I actually lived I started my life in a town called Low Point. You got nowhere to go but up right after that. But yeah, it was Low Point. I went to Low Point, Washburn High School. I've had 2 jobs in my life, real jobs. I've worked on farms and I've done radio. That's it. End of story.
Incredible.
Yeah, wasn't a waiter, didn't work at retail, none of that. Just I went right from high school to radio.
When you were a little boy in Low Point, in the farmhouse that
Yes.
your mom recently sold, you probably were listening to transistor radio and
Constantly.
and dreaming of being a radio disc jockey or what?
Yeah, that's what I wanted. I thought, man, if you could play records, I loved music. I thought if I can play music and make a living doing it, that's all right with me. So then it was the idea of how do I get into this? How do I find this loop? And I had a great art teacher when I was a senior in high school that knew a friend of ours, both ours, Lee Malcolm.
Okay.
She went to high school with Lee. And she said, I'm going to take you to a tour of WIRL. I want to just so you can see what it's like. So on my way out, the program director was a guy named Bill McCluggage at the time. And I just thought I'll never have this chance again. So I just said, how do I become a DJ at this station? Desperate as he was for somebody to work the overnight weekend shifts, he said, how quick can you get me a tape? I said, I'll have one here tomorrow. So I sat inside my bedroom with a little cassette recorder with my record player and mocked up a tape.
Really?
Dropped it off, didn't hear anything for a couple of weeks. I thought, oh boy. I didn't want to go to college.
And
I knew
you
that.
were how old?
17.
Okay.
And he called and he said, hey, we're going to start you doing these overnight shifts on the weekends. When can you come in and train? And in an hour, when do you need me? And so I went in and trained and got the job. And then I went full time shortly thereafter.
Did you have a car that you could get?
Yes, I had a car.
To and from?
Yeah, I had a car. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's where I went to and from my place to WIRL, which Grossenbach Road there. It used to be across from ICC. Mm-hmm. And that's where I started the whole crazy career of mine 45 years later.
Isn't that something?
It's nuts. Yeah, and I worked with some of the greats, you know.
Yeah, well, so name some of them because...
Robin Weaver was a familiar name, I think, in central Illinois.
Yeah.
And it's a shame that so many young people didn't get a chance to hear him. Immense talent, immense talent. And the nicest, kindest guy I've ever met. He and his wife would invite me to supper at their place because they knew I was on my own and 18 years old and, you know, I don't know, out of my mind. So they would take me in and I would do stuff with them. You know, I worked with Lee. And I worked with a guy named Mark Wainwright and John Bachman. I hate to leave anybody out, but these guys were bigger than life to me. I was breathing the same air as these guys.
Right.
Holy smokes. And so, yeah, I listened to WIRL a lot as a kid growing up, and then WLS, of course. Everybody did. And I remember running into John Landecker early on in my career. I was at a White Sox game. He was there. And I went up to him, and this is John Landecker, the big WLS guy, right? And I said, John, I just want you to know that you're the reason I got into radio. And he turned to me and he said, don't blame me for that.
Wow.
And that was my introduction to John Landecker, kiddingly, of course.
Right.
But anyway, it was kind of a fun thing. So I idolized these guys. I loved them, and I wanted to be one of them. That's all I ever wanted to do.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
That you know, dreams do come true.
They do, absolutely.
But you got to work for them.
A lot of work.
Yeah.
A lot of work. A lot of blood, sweat, and tears that went into it. A lot of job changes over the years, different stations. You know, so it happens. That's how it works.
But mostly, you've stayed in central Illinois. You've stuck with your roots.
Yeah, 3 years in Wichita, Kansas, and I came back. I did WB&Q for a long time. I did Rock 106 for a while. Jamie Markley and I have known each other for 35 years. But anyway, that goes back. And I did stay around here because I had family here, and I wanted my daughter to go to school around here. And it was simple for me. I don't want to jerk her around the country, you know. That's not what I wanted for her. So.
Well, yeah, and that's kind of the life that it can,
yeah.
that you can live.
It's vagabond, yeah, no
right.
doubt.
If you want to move up,
That's
if you're
right.
really that serious
That's
about
right.
it. So, you now have a show. It's local. Well, you had Robbins
And Mark, yeah.
Robbins and Mark. I wanted to
Yeah.
say Robinson because somebody
no,
called in
somebody
and said
did say,
Robinson.
Call me Robinson.
You had that show, and you were doing so well. Tell me the story about how you were going to make that jump.
Jamie I was just my show for a while, and Jamie was in sales at the time. He wanted to make the move into sales, and everybody freaks out at some point in their life and goes, oh, I got to make a change. So he did, and he wasn't really having a good time. So he came to me and he said, we've been talking about this for decades. He said, would you ever consider doing a show with me? Sure. And so our boss said, okay. He asked me if it was okay, and I said, sure, it's fine. So it became Robbins and Markley, and we put the thing on. Just a couple of dopes who had no idea what we were up to or doing or anything.
But you're having fun.
And we had fun, and the show was fun, yet it was, there was a political angle and a news angle to it as well. But we're not news people, we're not journalists, we're just guys.
Right.
You know, and the show did really well, and they flew us out to Portland, Oregon, which was the mothership of our company, and they wanted to put us on there in Portland. So I wanted us to do a show from Peoria to Portland. And Portland, my gosh, that's a big market. You know, okay, all right. So we got the contract signed, everything. We came back. 2 weeks later, I had a heart attack. End of it. Everything just went away immediately.
Well, you used to joke about, you know, that you're going to have the grabber.
The grabber,
Yeah. But did you have any signs that this was really going to happen?
The only thing I can tell you is, and I've said this to other people, is there was some numbness in my fingers occasionally. And occasionally I would get winded doing things I've always done, play basketball or whatever. I would get winded. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, it's just because I'm out of shape. I'm not as good a shape as I used to be. I'm older, whatever, right? That's it. And went to bed, had a heart attack, and paramedics revived me. Went to the hospital.
Who was with you?
My ex-wife
Okay,
was at
all
the
right.
time. And so they revived me, took me to the hospital. I was there, and they were going to do surgery the next morning. And I coded again. And this time I coded for 40 minutes.
Wow.
Minute 41, I came back. So my pastor gave me a 41 will come hat, you know, and because 41's biblical all
Right.
over the place. So, but it was minute 41 where I came back. And it's a crazy story. And I wish I had a better one. I wish, you know, I saw the light and I was tugging on the robe of Jesus or
And
something
you
like that, but I wasn't. I don't remember any of it. None of
Darn.
it.
Darn.
I know. I got no story. If I had a better story, it'd be sellable. But yeah, I don't remember anything. After that, I was in ICU for a couple of months. I was in the hospital for 6 months. And the rehab was unbelievable. It was 3 times a week. My kidneys failed. I was on dialysis 3 times a week. One day at dialysis, I'm jumping around here a little bit, but one day at dialysis, the tech came to me and said, hey, I'm looking at these numbers. I don't think you have to be here.
Yay.
Sure enough, my kidney started to work again, which again, never happens, right? I was on a transplant list. I went to classes, I was going to Barnes. That's where I was going to go in St. Louis, as soon as one became available, or 2. But anyway, it was a crazy story. They started working again, and since then, well, they'll never be 100%, but they keep me well above where I need to be in terms of dialysis, which is a miracle unto itself.
Really? So you don't know what you were doing right in order to have all these miracles kind of happen in your life?
No, I know what I was doing wrong. Yeah, I mean, I'm an alcoholic. I'll be the first to admit that. I'm not ashamed of it. It's something that I did, and it got out of control. But I was one of these guys that could consume a lot of alcohol.
You could function.
And never slur, never fight, never be erratic. You know, it was crazy. And that's a blessing and a curse. But so I didn't think I had a problem at all. I thought it was just normal to do what I was doing, you know. And I wasn't a day drinker or any of that stuff. But yeah, I had a problem. I had a big problem. And fortunately for me, I was in a coma when I went through withdrawal. So I was in a coma for a month.
And you had no idea you were going through withdrawal then either?
No, but they knew.
Yeah.
You know, they knew.
Oh, so maybe you had
doctors
DTs
knew.
and all that.
Yes.
Wow.
And they had me sedated to the point where the DTs were less than they would have been had I done it another way. So it's a crazy story, but I was out of work for 3 years, 4 years. It's been 8 years now since that. But yeah, I didn't know what I was going to do. I mean, I had no idea. I was living with my daughter at the time. She's a nurse. nurse practitioner. She won't want me to say that.
Thank heavens.
Yeah, it's really good to have one of those in the family.
Yes.
But she took really good care of me too. So when I moved into her house, I was still in a hospital bed, and there was a lot of work. You know, it was a lot of work between there and where I'm at now.
I think I remember hearing maybe the first day that Jamie had you on the show, and it's like, wow. I mean, you have the radio voice.
Yeah.
You got that great voice, and it was not the Scott Robbins.
Well, I had a
radio.
trach.
Okay.
And when you have a trach, they remove the trach. You have to learn how to breathe again and talk again and how all this functions and works.
Right.
Now, it would upset me when somebody would say, "Oh, your voice doesn't sound right." I would really get angry. Like, what do you mean it doesn't sound right? It sounds fine. You know, but it didn't. Now I know it didn't because I've heard the tape. And it was bad. So it took a long time, a lot of voice exercises and other things, part of the rehab. Learned how to walk because I couldn't walk. I was in a wheelchair. You know, it's weird because I lay prone for almost 6 months.
Right.
And
you atrophied.
Right. And someone says to me, well, you really don't know you can't walk from here to there. And I'm like, well, of course I can. And you can't. So I had to learn how to walk, talk. My brain had been deprived of oxygen for long periods of time. So I had to do like simple building block things, you know, to retrain my brain to think. Now, some would say it still isn't working properly. But
well, there is that.
Yeah, there is that, yes. But anyway, that was part of the process. And I hear from people all around the country that are going through something very similar, or they're having open heart surgery, or they've had a heart attack or something, and you can get depressed because there are certain things you cannot do anymore. You know, after that, it's a slow process to build your strength back up. And I still don't walk 100%. I mean, I'm still dicey with it.
But you don't want to fall.
No, that's the thing. I have fallen. I broke a hip that way.
Okay.
So I've got to be very careful, and so I am. I'm very careful with it. I try to take good care of myself. I mean, eliminating the bad habits that I had was immediate.
So that was, you're not smoking, well,
No.
you used to smoke cigarettes.
Yeah, and then
but
I
then you were
smoked cigars
smoking
because I thought that was better for me.
Okay, much better.
Idiot. Yeah.
Smells a lot worse.
It does.
And you were drinking, so then you cleaned up that part of your act.
Yes.
And then what do you enjoy doing now? You got a couple of cats. You're not allergic to them.
I have 2 cats. I live
good.
by myself. I have a great apartment that looks like a 12-year-old boy lives there.
Okay.
So I've got all my sports and music stuff on the walls. And, you know, dating a woman when she comes over for the first time, I tell them, hey, here's how it looks. Yeah, this is my life, okay? But anyway, so it's funny you say that because Jamie and I were talking the other day, because he doesn't drink anymore either, about how different it is going to shows, going to concerts.
When everybody's stupid.
When everybody's, you know, out of their minds,
Right.
and you're the guy there that's, you know, not. I don't miss it. I don't miss that feeling. I think I do sometimes, but then I remember where it took me, and I can't do that again. I won't do that again. I won't do it to my family again.
Yeah.
Or to people who care about me. You know, I just can't. So I'm not going to. So I'm much more boring than I used to be. Yeah.
So you're quite the baseball fan. Have you been to every baseball stadium in the country?
I've been to a lot of them.
Okay.
Not to everyone. That's still on my bucket list.
I was going to ask bucket list, yeah.
Yeah, I've been to a lot of ballparks over the years. Yeah, I go to Kansas City every year with 2 of my friends. We've been doing it since '86. Same 3 guys every year. No matter where our lives are at, we all congregate for 4 days every year, and that's what we do.
And it doesn't matter who the Royals are playing?
No, we try to
at
get
that
a
point?
4-game series.
Okay.
That's what we try to do. We try to go to at least 4 games. We're going to go. We're going to make it, 4 games. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's what we do, and that's something we've done every year.
So these are high school friends, or these are
Nope,
radio
these are guys
friends?
I met later in life. One is a tech guy, and the other one worked for the veterans, the VA hospitals, and retired.
All right.
So they're brothers. So I go every year with those 2 guys.
What fun.
It's great. I mean, it's
Something
a
to
great
look forward
tradition.
to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got a brick in Kansas City. If you're ever there, you can see our names on the brick.
Well, you have
Yeah.
to draw me a map.
Yeah, I know. I'm
X
going to
marks
have,
the
because there's a
spot.
million of them there. Yeah, right.
Exactly. Okay, so let's talk about your syndicated show.
Isn't it crazy?
It really is.
Yeah.
From Peoria, Illinois, and you're syndicated. People all over the country are calling you, but you're broadcasting from right here. So
Yes.
let's hear a little about
Well,
that.
Jamie and I are here. David's in San Antonio.
Right.
One of our stations in San Antonio. That whole thing started with Jamie and I, like I said, and then we signed the contract, had a heart attack. But we had a guy come in that was a talent coach, well known throughout our industry. And every time you have a talent coach comes in, you've probably gone through this too. you wince a little bit because they're
Right.
going to have to find something wrong, right?
Right.
Or else they got to justify their position
Ours
somehow.
was, well, you should wear your hair this way. You should wear this color.
talk with your
and go
hands
higher.
more,
You
whatever.
sit
You
in,
know, yeah, it goes on and on, right?
Right.
And so you kind of wince when you hear this. The guy came in and was the coolest guy I've ever met, understood completely what we were doing, and just helped us mold the show, the blocking and tackling part, more than anything. And from there, it led to Portland, which led to the syndicator, Compass Media, coming in and saying, we want to take you guys to the next level. And so again, we don't know what we're doing. We said, okay, and then I had my heart attack, came back on the show, finally full-time, and it just blew up. We're at about 140 stations, I guess, around the country now. And we're, I think, the 19th or 20th talk show in America.
Okay. I thought it was 17th.
Maybe it is 17. It could be now. I don't remember.
Oh, that brain of yours.
Yeah, I know. It doesn't work. But we just picked up Dallas not that long ago. So we're on in Dallas, we're on in San Antonio, we're on in Vegas, on in Seattle, Phoenix. It's spread out, Philadelphia. So it's spread out around the country right now. And we found that just common sense stuff that we talk about resonates with a lot of people.
Right.
They may not agree with me,
Right.
which is fine. Some
Well,
are-
you tend to be more conservative.
Yes.
But you're presenting both sides of the story. You have David Van Camp on there, who's
Yeah.
the newsman, who
Yeah.
will put things right in the
Yeah,
middle.
he keeps the car from going in the ditch most
Yeah.
of the time. I mean, he kind of steers it back, right? But and it's just three guys talking about what's going on,
Right.
and how we see it, and we try to leave you laughing. That's, I think, separates us from the rest of the guys that are out there, you know, pounding the desk and breathing fire. We didn't want to do a show like that. Jamie always said, and I go back to this. Jamie Markley said to me, "Let's do a show that we would listen to."
But
And I thought, you know
great
what?
advice to
That's
yourselves.
great advice, yeah, because if it's a show we would listen to, then it's got to be great, right? I
Right.
mean, we're not wrong. But that's what we've always kind of modeled the thing after. And that's what program directors around the country tell us. You guys are different, and here's why you're different. So we try to keep that in mind when we do the show. We got to have funny. We got to interject funny in here somewhere. So.
And you really do. Well, the one story about Ulysses S. Grant getting a speeding ticket,
Yeah.
kind of. I guess. Well, no, he was
Yeah,
arrested.
he was arrested for his horse.
Driving his buggy too
Buggy too,
fast.
and he didn't push back on the cop. None of that. He paid his fine and moved on. Yeah, I mean, it's just we try to find strange things, and sometimes we find things that are so ridiculous we can mock it,
Right.
and that upsets some people around the country. Not everybody likes it.
Right.
You know, they'll some of the nastiest stuff I get from people around the country. You know, they hate you. But I figure you're over the target if these people aren't supposed to like me. And I figure you're over the target when they don't like you. Then you're right where you should be.
Right.
That
Because-
person shouldn't like me.
Exactly.
Right.
And you're giving opinion.
Yes.
And you know, we all don't get along. We all can't play in the same
Right.
sandbox. It would be nice if we could.
Right.
But that's just not the way the world is. So what's been the most fun that you've had on the show so far?
On the show?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, we have fun every day. Jamie is like my little brother, and we have a brotherly type relationships where he can pick on me sometimes, and it's
he
really
calls
funny.
you curmudgeon.
Yeah, and he
grumpy
does
old
all this
man,
stuff, right? And that's what he does.
Right.
He's like 6 years younger than me, so it's not like he's 20 years younger than me. But he pulled one over on me on the 4th of July one year, or no, it wasn't the 4th of July, but back up. It was like the week before that, but he pulled a joke on me where he had our syndicator write a letter saying one of our stations didn't want me to voice promos anymore, just one of the other two guys, because they thought I was hateful and evil and all this stuff, right?
Okay.
So I'm reading this out loud, and he's taping it, and I go off on this diatribe about how angry I am and blank this and blank that, and I don't care what this guy, and then they let me in on the fact it was a joke. And David will do stuff like that too to me every once in a while. I'm pretty gullible sometimes.
Well, you know, they tease you that you're cranky and
Yeah.
everything, and you do kind of go off like that.
Yeah.
But it's not, I think you're just incredulous about some of
I
these
am.
things.
I don't fake anything. I mean, my outrage is real. I mean, when I come across something like that, I'm just like, I can't believe this is happening.
Right.
I mean, if you can't look at the news or read the news or something and shake your head and go,
Wait.
these are things that somebody 20 years ago said could happen, and they were kooks, and now they're happening.
Right.
You know, so it's bizarro world sometimes. But you got to make fun of it, because if you don't, it'll make you crazy.
Yeah,
I mean, you know,
absolutely. And
it
that's
will-
why a lot of people are kind of crazy right now.
Yeah. Well, sometimes I'll say to these guys, you watch Talking Head shows on Sunday, And Jamie's always like, no, I can do this 5 days a week. I'm not doing this on Sunday. You know, I'm not going to watch this guy or whatever, because he'll sit, and I don't know why I do either, because I end up yelling at the TV to no one.
But that's also letting you hear what people are going to be talking about the next day.
Right, and I like to know where their take is too, because generally their take is a 180 from my take. So it works out that way.
Yeah.
But we're not journalists.
No.
We don't pretend to be journalists. We've never said we're journalists. You know, we're not. We're not trained in that area at all.
You do make a point of making sure that everybody knows that David is a journalist.
David's a journalist. David's the guy who went to school. He's the journalist. And David is probably one of the smartest guys I know. I mean, just
for
so
as young
smart.
as he is, he really is. So the beauty of your show is that they have David, so he's a millennial, and then you have Jamie, he's a Gen Xer.
Yeah.
And then you're the boomer, and so you're really balancing all of those. I mean, where we all came from,
Right.
And that is, don't you think that's what's
it's
the
another
winner?
selling point of the show, that it brings in diverse opinions from from 3 different generations on the same show.
Right.
And you know, and David's funny because of some of the markers, the pop culture markers in his life, are the pop culture markers, well, my daughter's life.
Okay.
You know, so it's a completely different dynamic. I mean, you know, when we do the Friday 5, which is all music countdown, which is fun for us, but David's input is always, you know,
something that
very 90s, 2000s, you
Right.
know, that kind of stuff. So.
Right. You didn't share a lot of your music with your daughter?
I did growing up, yeah. And as a matter of fact, we still go to a lot of concerts together. But over the years, she's gone with me to millions of concerts. Yeah, I took her along when she was just a kid. I mean, we saw Michael Jackson when she was 5. She stood on the seat.
I bet she
So
was
she
in
could see
heaven.
it. Yeah, it was wild. And, you know, but I saw a lot of bands, I mean, En Vogue, Mariah Carey several times, Whitney Houston several times. They're all with her.
Right, her generation.
Yeah.
So, and you have a granddaughter now who you're
Yeah.
just as proud as Punch.
Yeah, she's great. Being a grandparent is really cool.
It really is. And she's a gymnast?
She was, and she's kind of moved into competitive cheer now.
Okay.
And sort of the gymnastic thing was a lot of work and a lot of money and a lot of travel. But so is the other thing. But she's an athlete. She runs track and does all that stuff. And her sister is the 180 opposite of that. So.
And
anyway.
you're a good son. Your mom lives here still. She's still with us on this earth. And you put her through a lot when you got sick.
Yes, I did. And I'm paying her back now. I try to. I take care of her. I try to. I get her groceries and take her to appointments and that sort of thing. And, you know, it's something I think my daughter would do for me.
Right.
I mean, and she will someday. And it's just my repayment to my mom, who's always been great to me. My mom's a big music person, too.
Really?
Yeah, she loved music. And so there's music on in my house all the time.
Okay.
My dad loved radio. Because we would sit in the driveway when I was 8 or 9 years old, and he'd pick up like KAAY in Little Rock, which was this 50,000 watt blowtorch. You know, you could get at night, and it was always cool for him to get all these stations that were bouncing in from all over.
Well, like Radio from Fort Wayne, same
Absolutely,
thing?
yeah. Yeah, you could hear it everywhere, right? I mean, WLS, WJR out of Detroit. I mean, all these stations, right? And he'd sit in the driveway and get them and go, hey, listen to this. This is, you know, whatever jock was on at that time. And my dad knew all the announcers' names and everything, too. He was a big fan of radio.
So what do you think about technology today and digital and everything that you're doing, that you're able to broadcast from Peoria and San Antonio, and things are so different?
From a music DJ standpoint, I worry about the next generation, because I don't think there is a next generation. These kids are doing it from out of their house, out of their basement now, on the internet. They don't have any interest in this, and there are no jobs left. You could walk into any radio station group after 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and there's no one there. No one.
Because it's all satellite.
It's all satellite, or it's all voice tracked earlier in the day. So that's a whole different game. You can't cut your chops overnight anymore. You can't be awful and work overnights like I was. You have to immediately hit the ground running. Well, how can I do that when I've never done it? It's tough.
So you don't think?
And we took the jobs of other people. You know, I want to just touch on that real quick.
Right.
So there's always that feeling like, man, somebody was doing this job, and they put us on, and well, if it's not going to be us, it's going to be somebody else. It's not like they're going to keep these people. They're not.
Right. But we always had to do our best in order
Absolutely.
to not be bumped.
Right. I've never been fired.
I haven't either.
I mean, it's amazing, isn't it? I mean,
is.
when we talk to people in this business who've been fired 6 times or whatever,
Right.
usually that's the case. But
Yeah.
I've thought I was going to get fired a few times, but I didn't. So.
Yeah, I did too. I've never
Yeah.
even punched a time clock. I don't even know how that they would have.
I live in a world of salary, right? I mean, I don't know what that means, writing down hours.
Right.
So, yeah.
All right, so bucket list. We know that you want to get to all of the stadiums in the country.
Mm-hmm.
What about overseas? If you want to go overseas, or just real quick, what else is on your bucket list?
I've been overseas, and I don't know if I want to go again, just because of the climate of the world right now. I can see myself in some country that gets overthrown while I'm there, and I can't leave. I mean, strange things, right? Mm-hmm. These are things that go through my mind. I don't know. I want to do this for the next. If I die behind the mic, that'd be great. If I can be in my 80s and still doing that, I love this.
Right.
I love going to work. I love my job. And that's the only thing I can tell people is I live this every day. I live a bucket list thing every day.
Good for you.
And I do. I love what I do. And the only thing I ever told my daughter was find something you love to do.
And be passionate.
Just be passionate about it. The money will come.
Yeah.
If you're good enough, the money will come. And if you're not good enough, get good enough.
Yeah.
You can do this,
Well, you're doing it.
I am doing it.
Thanks for being here. Good to see
It's
you.
the first time you've ever had a guy who came back from the dead on your show, too.
I think so.
Yeah, I win that one. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Thanks, Scott,
Thank
for being
you.
here. I hope you learned a lot about Mr. Scott Robbins. Pretty fascinating. Stay safe and healthy,
Trying.
and hold happiness.